Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today on this episode, we're here at Target House, which is part of St. Jude here in Memphis. So got a little bit of background noise. I know I probably don't need to mention that, but we've got a big busy road, in front of me here, Poplar Avenue. So you're gonna be hearing some stuff, maybe some sirens, things like that. But today on this video, what I wanted to talk about was fishing shallow during the summertime. You know, it's kind of counterintuitive because everybody, once the fish spawn and they start getting into that post-spawn mode, the vast majority of fish do leave the bank and start going out offshore. And everybody starts talking about bass fishing like the only way to catch those fish is to go offshore, use your electronics, and fish structure on the main lake. And though I would say probably as a percentage, it has to be around 90% of the fish do leave the bank. That 10% represents a large number of fish that stay on the bank throughout the summertime, the hottest parts of the month. In fact, as you get more into summer, the later parts of summer, July and August and early September, you actually see a resurgence of fish that were deep, and they start pushing shallower for a multitude of reasons, including lack of oxygen in the deeper areas. And it really depends on the fishery and how much, the water gets churned up and oxygenated at the deeper depths. So, but there is plenty of opportunities to catch fish shallow. But what I wanted to do was focus on 3 different scenarios that that really tend to pose the most consistent action in shallow water. So before we get into those 3 things, let's talk about, in general, what is the biggest key to finding the right type of cover to catch fish around during the summertime? Because it really does change from springtime to summertime. In springtime, I'm looking for more vertical type of cover. Things like stumps, they're not really casting a huge shadow, but they are there for the fish to relate to build their beds around, and things like that. Same thing with like vertical reeds. They grow straight from the bottom, straight up to through the surface, and they're essentially, vertical cover is great during the springtime because the fish just want to relate to it and build their beds to it and protect what's in front of them, right? That's why I think that vertical cover is so popular and important during the spring. But during the summertime, it's all about escaping the heat. Okay, water gets up to the 80s and 90s. Those fish want shade, and every single degree matters. If they can get a couple degree difference between the sun and the shade, they're going to pick the shade 100% of the time. And so it's really important to find more horizontal cover during the summertime. That's going to be the biggest key to finding shallow bass. So the first situation that I always look for during the summertime is probably one of the more obvious types of cover during the summer or on any lake at any time, and that is docks. Docks are the perfect horizontal cover because they're very close to the water in general, especially docks that have floats. Those are my favorite during the summertime because the docks that have posts that are built on posts, they could still be pretty high, so the shadow may be casting kind of sideways, and there might not be as much shadow for the fish to relate to and to hang out underneath. But floating docks, they're right there on the water level, and so they're casting a ton of shade, and they also have the floats which attract a lot of algae, which attracts the bluegill and a whole ecosystem underneath those floats. So but in general, regardless of if they're docks that are built on posts and they're maybe a little bit higher off the bottom or off the water, or they have floats, docks are a really good cover source for bass. They're really great to relate to. They really do cool down the water, and they give those bass just a great place to escape the heat during the summertime and to ambush prey. And especially docks that are on the main lake, or on main creek type areas, where there's deeper water access, maybe there's a lot of wind movement, a lot of opportunity for the wind to kind of churn things up. Those are the type of docks that I like to focus on, not the backs of creeks like I did in the spring. They're really main lake stuff. that's what I'm looking for. So docks are the first thing that I look for during the summertime if I'm trying to fish shallow. Maybe you don't have any electronics at all. You just want to go out there and beat the bank. Docks are a really good one to choose. The next scenario that I love looking for this time of year is, you know, some type of matted vegetation. It could be cheese, as we call it, which is just matted up algae on the surface. In fact, I was just at a lake, what is it, Meeman Shelby State Forest here near Memphis. I probably said that wrong, but they had a lake over there, and we just brought Riley, and we're walking her around with our friends Ryan and Rhett. And you know, I noticed that there's a lot of algae starting to build up on the surface, like these little mats, and they create these perfect little horizontal mats that are even creating more cool environment than even in shade than even docks, you know, because the mats are actually on the water and they're creating a ton of shade, and there's something that the fish can really dig into. And the mats themselves are attracting all different types of bait fish and insects and grass shrimp and all that kind of stuff. So or the mats could be something like hydrilla or milfoil that is matted up. Whatever type of matted vegetation you can find, fish are going to be around it. I guarantee that some fish are going to be around that type of cover. It's just it's a type of cover that creates a lot of shade. It creates a lot of opportunity to get out of the heat, but it also is just a huge ecosystem of its own. And so there's always going to be bass around that type of stuff, especially if you're fishing from the bank and you're looking for something to target from the shore. That is a great type of cover for bank fishermen. The final type of cover that I really like to look for this time of year, I also noticed it at this lake that we were walking around the edge yesterday. I think it's called like Poplar Tree Lake or something like that. But I was looking across the bay and I saw some overhanging trees. You know, this time of year, the overhanging trees are really lush, all right? So they got a lot of leaves, and that means that they're casting a ton of shade. And usually during the summertime, summer pool is bringing those lakes as high up as they're gonna be in a year. And so the water level is generally like right where the leaves are touching the water, or just above. And so you can get a lot of shade underneath those overhanging trees. And that is one of my favorite situations to catch summertime shallow fish, is overhanging trees. You know, throwing something like a frog, skipping it underneath those trees, something like a wacky rig. Fishing those type of shade lines that are naturally created by overhanging trees and foliage is a really big deal during the hottest months. And honestly, it's something that isn't as obvious for a lot of people. Like, you can go into the back of a creek that doesn't have any docks or any real popular type of bass cover, but it still has a lot of overhanging trees. And it may be a creek that just isn't fished as much as an area that has docks or some other popular type of cover. So you can actually get to some more less pressured fish with overhanging trees a lot of times. So, but it creates the perfect environment. And one of the cool things that I always look for during the summertime, early summer especially, is mayfly hatch. If you have a mayfly hatch, those overhanging trees are the perfect scenario, because that's where most of those mayflies are going to hang. In fact, you'll be going down the bank during the heat of a mayfly hatch, and you'll see that those trees are going to start drooping down to the water level in a lot of cases, because they're just weighted down with all those mayflies. And where there's mayflies, there's a lot of fish. Lots of bluegill, lots of panfish, and lots of bass. So anyways, guys, I know I rambled on and on about those three different situations, but I think that they're really important, three types of cover. But the biggest thing is finding horizontal cover during the summertime to get out of the heat. Anything that casts a big shadow and allows those fish to stay in cooler water, that's the deal during the summer. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. If you have success with any of these tips or tactics that I talk about on these videos, definitely send me a message down in the comments or sonar@sonarfishing.com. Thank you so much. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. I'm going to see you out on the water. Trust the process.